Welcome to Mambu Summit Chapters, the flagship event from Mambu, this year with a digital twist. We're so excited to welcome you from Amsterdam to wherever you may be in the world. My name is Nina Mohanty, and I'm so thrilled to be here to share in the chapters throughout the next few days. I am so excited to join Eugene Danilkis, the CEO and co-founder of Mambu here today. Eugene, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me here. It's so much fun.
Yes, it is. We're having a great time here. I was reading that Mambu is a decade old.
Yeah.
Nearly 11, actually.
I'm a big kid, yeah.
A big kid. Actually, a proper, grown child now.
Yeah.
Do you remember, the actual foundation and, registering to be a company?
The registration part, not so much, because I remember sitting on my computer just coding away. My co-founder went out there and he brought some paperwork, which I had to sign.
Nice, nice.
But I remember us definitely having a few celebratory drinks after that day.
Excellent, in between all of that code.
Exactly, yeah. And back to the coding afterwards, yeah.
And always back to the
Yeah,
coding. Well, it is now nearly 11 years later, and Mambu has grown incredibly, and it has evolved so much. And how would you say, from where you sit, it has evolved over these past 10 years?
Yeah, it's a different company, and it's a different company almost every single year. And I think that's always something I think we were kind of very much believed into ingrain in ourselves, that we want to build a company that changes. And of course, that's something that we talk about to our customers a lot, right? The value of our platform is about the fact that they can continue to change and evolve both in business and technology.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we very much kind of ingrained in our mindset of building Mambu. We have a vision where we believe the big trends are about technology and financial services and the role of cloud and software as a service in that. So it was all kind of very directionally, like this is going to happen over the next 10, 20 years. We don't know exactly at which pace. And as a result, we thought, well, how can we build a product and foundation for a product and platform and a business that's going to evolve into whatever will actually happen at whichever pace of change. So I think the actual product and solution has changed so much, of course, over those years.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the team maybe humored me and kept a little bit of my original code around.
The source code matters.
Yeah, probably in some sort of museum somewhere where no customer has to actually deal with it.
Yeah.
The team has obviously completely changed and evolved many times, with a few, of course, people who've been around for the whole entire journey. They're passionate about the business and what we do.
Yeah.
But otherwise, the company really keeps changing so much all the time, and it keeps us on our toes and very excited. But I think we talk about change, in the industry. And so I think it's important that we also live that ourselves as a company and a culture too.
Absolutely. I mean, it's almost a preteen now, so
Right.
we're getting into that time. But you mentioned earlier kind of the pace in which Mambu would change and grow. And do you think that the pace is quickening now, currently, and with the ecosystem that you've formed and with the partners and the clients that you have, does it feel like it's moving faster now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was, and that's a lot driven also by just what's happening in industry, right? Every single company is always in the factors of what they're building themselves and what their customers need, but also, of course, the factors around them are changing so much.
Yep.
So the market is so vastly different than what it was, never mind when we founded, but even 5 years ago. And so I really feel like the first 5 years of the company or so was really, it was building product, it was building tech, it was working with a few customers, but the industry and the change that we see in financial services was happening at nowhere near the same pace and velocity as we see right now. And from what I see, it's only just continuing to accelerate, right?
Yes.
And of course, that's creating a lot of demand for our products and services, and it's very exciting. But it's also then continuing us to think, well, what should we be doing? What should we be changing? Which spaces should we be moving into, and how do we do that?
Yeah.
And so, of course, now that's for us at a continuously accelerating pace as well.
Absolutely. So I think, with Mambu having grown so quickly over the past 10 years, there's a lot of changes that come with that. We already talked about this, but how does this affect the team? You mentioned there's people who've been around from day one. And they've stayed the course, and there's people that have come and grown with the team. How does this affect the team and culture at Mambu?
So I think one of the things that we've always tried to do was kind of define what is, there's a lot of people in different roles, different cultures, different backgrounds, working all over the world, and we even had that in the very early days. But I think we always try to be mindful of, regardless of which function you're in, if you're building product, if you're selling to customers, what are the sort of principles that we feel are important for Mambuvians to have as a common sort of foundation of how they work, how they interact with others, and those sort of principles. We also continue to evolve them and to clarify that what we believe is important.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that we try to have, as a foundation, basically across the company, and that's sort of I guess in a way, the foundation of our culture, right?
Yeah.
We're looking for people who like to learn, like to develop, who have gone through times of change, have embraced it, even though, of course, it's difficult. So I think that mindset, is really critical, because we know whatever we are setting up is also going to change again very soon.
Yes.
So we need to have people who are comfortable and okay and are able to go through that change, because we know it's coming. We don't know exactly what it's going to be, but we know something's going to be different.
Yeah, you're signing up for a bit of an adventure.
Exactly,
aren't you? Now, you said something there, Mambuvian. Where did that come from?
I believe, I wish I could take credit for it, but actually I believe one of our colleagues about 5 years ago started to come up with different terminologies for it.
Dump the name.
Mambuvites and Mambuvians, and there was a few, Mambuologists? No, there was a few that didn't quite make the cuts.
Mambuologist.
Yeah, exactly. There was a few that didn't make the cuts, but Mambuvian, I think, really
Yeah.
somehow connected, and one that
And
that we
since
used.
then, you are now all Mambuvians.
That's
wow,
right.
Brilliant. To circle back, after speaking about Mambuvians, the business is growing rapidly, right? It's nearly doubling year on year. And with that, I imagine, comes a change where you're no longer just 3 people in a room, right? You have grown as a team. How does this change the company structure? Because you're kind of got a bird's eye view. So how has this changed over the past 10 years?
So I think it's, like you said, it's a matter of, I think, what we kind of focus on. So when it was a smaller team, or even when things are changing less quickly, you can get most of the key people in a room, and you can be relatively clear about, we're just working on tactical things. But now you actually have to focus on really setting the vision for where you want things to go,
Yeah.
setting a lot about the principles, like I said, of how you want to get there, not
Yeah.
prescriptive of actually painting the path to get there, but saying, look, we want to go here, and here are the things that are very important to us, whether it's culture, it's diversity, it's sustainability, it's about great customer experiences, and really defining what those things are and saying this is the vision for the company.
Yeah.
And then there's a critical step of, because we are so global and so diverse, of then figuring out what level of autonomy do you give to different teams, different leaders in pursuing that path, and making that kind of a conscious decision, saying, look, we're going to do this sort of centrally as a group, and we'll get your input on it, but at the end it's going to be something that is true everywhere.
Yep.
And then there's some level of autonomy to say, well, actually, for whether it's 30% or 70% of what you do, you're relatively autonomous, as long as you're, makes sense to the vision that you're going and the principles and,
Yeah.
and way of operating. And so I think that ends up being a lot of the conversations of creating that, so that at the end you really want to empower leaders who are better and stronger in their particular areas, whether it's about because they know the Brazilian lending market better than you, which of course
Yeah.
they do, or they know some pieces of technology better than I, which of course they do.
Yeah.
Everyone in the company knows something a lot better than someone else. So it's a matter of giving them the clarity and ability to bring their best self and pursue their goals.
Yeah, I like that. It's very fitting for Amsterdam, isn't it? It's set your chart, set your sails for a destination, and get there with these things in mind. But
Yeah.
how you get there is kind of up to you.
Try to avoid scurvy as you go. As always.
Make sure you bring citrus on board so you can avoid scurvy. That's
Absolutely, yeah.
a lovely maritime joke for everyone. So, we've been talking about the growth, and from the very beginning, Mambu was obviously small. You always have to start somewhere, probably with letters of intent, going off to fundraise. But you're now working with massive organizations. You've got clients like Western Union, and you're partnering with Google, with Salesforce. So How has the company's strategy changed to work with these large organizations that are multinational as well?
So I think the thing to always keep in mind is that, no matter whether you're a 300,000 person company or you're a 20-person company, at the end we're still interacting with people there, right? And so that
What
part
a
of it's
novel idea.
it's still actually people at the end of the day. Now, of course, what changes, of course, is that that person themselves, whether it's the champion for a technology or it's someone that's looking to, transform a business unit, or they're being the adventurer themselves and they're trying to champion to the business how they should move into a new geography or a new market, that individual themselves needs from us because of the organization they're in, they need additional tools and resources to be able to succeed in their journey.
Yeah.
Right, and those might be about our information security system, because they, as a large bank, have extremely high standards, which you, as a 5-person fintech or a lender,
Yeah.
might not have. So it's something which they need as a service from us, is to provide that security framework and to deliver against it. Or because of the nature of their business, they might need to have additional partners to help them to bring all the pieces together with the organization to deliver the business case, to deliver actually the transformation of value. And then they have to work with partners like Deloitte and others
Yeah.
to actually do that. So I think, but if you focus on that individual and the individuals that are involved in that and say, what's their mandate to succeed, then it's a matter of thinking, well, what can we as an organization do to best help them succeed in what they're trying to do? And those could be all the way down to individual features in the product,
Yeah.
to all the way to our partnerships with the likes of Google and Amazon, and talking to regulators, right? So there's a whole
Yeah.
different range of that. And I think if you, again, take that mindset of the customer first, and the customer here being the person who's championing the projects and initiative, then how do we help make them successful?
So it's a help us, help you type of situation, right? So with these large organizations, I don't know about you, but I've found in the past that there can be some reluctance, actually, towards digital transformation or transformation in general. Do you find that the way that they're thinking about cloud, the way that they're thinking about transformation is different now than it was before? How are they thinking about it now?
Yeah, I think that's changed a lot, probably especially over the last maybe 3 years, I would say. I think if I was to wind the clock back maybe 3 to 5 years ago, it was still sort of, we can see cloud, it seems sort of relevant, but it was more a matter of trying to understand really, is this going to work? Is this really enough business value? And I think now the conversation's really changed to that. That's basically, for most organizations, sort of table stakes. It's kind of
default, yeah.
It's pretty much default that this is going to be a really critical pillar and way of thinking of our future. And the conversation has really shifted to how, right? So where do we start? Which do we start with? Some pieces of technology? Do we start with some businesses? And how do we actually start to embark on that journey?
Yeah.
And what's the kind of the first steps that we take there? So I think that's been the big mindset and shift of figuring out not what do we do, but how do we start?
How?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you've mentioned this already, like the Mambu ecosystem, if you will, the Mambuvian ecosystem. And this includes partners, of course,
Yeah.
that you've already mentioned, but also consultancies, right?
Right.
And so what is it like for them to be a partner of Mambu, do you think now, or for a consultancy to work with Mambu? We've talked about help us, help you, but how would you like it to be, and how is it currently functioning?
So I think what the difference with us is that we are building a new ecosystem fundamentally, right? If you look at a lot of kind of traditional technology or technologies that might have been built in-house, then that provider themselves, for the most part, is a closed ecosystem, right? So
Yeah.
you're working with company A, and then the challenge for the consultants and advisors was, how do you actually implement the system, this particular system? But now it's a more interesting and much more open, broader question of like, what is the ecosystem fundamentally that's appropriate for the business, right? And that's both looking then at, Mambu as a platform for that, and yes, how do you implement Mambu? But it's really much more about what's the ecosystem question around it.
Yeah.
Like, which technologies should you use for what? What's going to be the business business impact? What is the commercial impact of that? So you actually have a huge amount of choice now with an open platform like ours, but also just because of the nature of the whole entire fintech ecosystem and how it's changing. And so I think the consultants are taking actually a much more important role, because it's not just a matter of select system A and system B and then we'll help you implement it. It's like, no, there's hundreds of technologies you can use combined in lots of different ways, which deliver different customer experiences, different business values, and yes, have different costs. So then it's whole navigating that whole entire world and fundamentally creating ecosystems for their customers, but also the ecosystems they're creating are not static, right? So it's actually, this is what it is day one, but then what comes out a month later, right? What changes in the market a year later? How nimble is what they created able to shift, right? So I think it actually opens up a much broader, more interesting world of what's possible.
I really like that term ecosystem, though, because when we talk about an ecosystem, it's the world, right? Are these things going to be symbiotic in their relationship with one another? And we have to make sure that they all fit together and make sense. And it's not just like plug this in here and pray that it works.
Exactly.
Right? So I'm gonna kind of go a bit off piste here, and I want to talk about you as the co-founder of Mambu and where you see the vision for Mambu now that you're 10 years in. I imagine the big vision that you had, well, I don't know, maybe you can tell us how has your vision changed in the past 10 years, and what are you setting your sights on right now?
So I think the vision, the very simplest, is still very much the same. When we were still building this out, we really imagined, let's create a platform for enabling financial services and fundamentally enabling organizations to create better customer products and experiences, right? Whether that's for individuals who are coming from not having any financial products and experiences because they're in an emerging market, or it's for individuals like myself who hated sending faxes to my bank to change PIN codes, which I did, and then had to change banks. So there's a whole range of creating better experiences, and that's just from individuals, right? There's businesses and others. So our whole entire vision was, let's create a platform that enables others anywhere in the world to create great financial services and banking experiences for their end customers. But over those 10 years, what's changed is kind of the ecosystem around that, right? You didn't have a lot of the technology, more customer-facing technology, or even AI technology and lots of others that can be part of that ecosystem and can be part of that better experience for the customers, right? So I think that's the nature of, so the vision for that platform is still very much still the same case. It's just a matter of the what and how, because the world has changed so much and continues to do so. So now it's actually a matter of figuring out where, which partners should we kind of connect with, which are different additional types of financial products and services should we work with? How can we better work with not just traditional financial institutions and fintechs, but those that are embedding financial services as part of their product? So that whole entire world has changed, but I think it's still very much underpinned by how can we help any of these organizations, be it a large bank or a telco or a startup or a brewery, how do we enable them, or brewery, how do you enable them to create great financial experiences for their end customers? And so that's always kind of been our focus. And, the organization providing that service, like I said, whether it's a large bank or it's a telco, like I said, they have different needs, they have different requirements, have different business strategy, but in some sense they're an intermediary, because they're an intermediate to be the ones who are actually focusing on the end customer and service, right? So we think about how can we empower them to create that great experience for the customer.
Absolutely. You've used that word empowerment a lot, and I really like that. The idea that you are giving the tools that they need to be able to provide the best experience possible for whomever their customer is. Would you say that is the North Star? That's what's guiding you just into the future with Mambu? Still delivering on that?
Yeah, very much. I think it's even broader than just tools. I think it's, I think when you design a piece of technology, especially a software as a service, it has an opinion in a sense, because it looks at the world and the way it designs it, the way you design the product, the way you design how people interact with it, how you design the services, etc., and naturally facilitates working with it in a better way, in a specific way that's better. And so you sort of ingrain those opinions kind of in your tools. It's not just a generic tool where it's just like a hammer and you can use it for something, right?
Yeah.
There's actually a lot of how we believe, not just ourselves, but through our customers and through partners, how we believe great banking experiences can be delivered, and that's part of the nature of what we've built as a product and technology. But I would say it's even broader because it's not just product technology. It's when I say software as a service, I really like to emphasize the service part because there's an element of whether it's actually running the service infrastructure, whether it's a service of providing security, whether it's a service of working with our customers and advising or partnering with them on architecture and other parts of it. To me, that's that whole entire Mambu experience. It's not just simply a tool that we hand over.
Yep.
The tools and technology are just part of a greater whole, which is actually the whole entire service experience for Mambu.
Brilliant. Well, as an opinionated woman, I appreciate the opinionated tools and services. Eugene, it has been such a pleasure to speak to you today. I very, very much enjoyed our conversation. I hope to have many more in the future.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to tune in for the further Mambu chapters.